Now that you understand how options work and the Greeks, you can see there are a lot of things that might go into what options you should be buying. So let's talk about 5 steps to choosing an option to buy. First, you must have a time frame and a plan. So the question to be asked is, how long do you plan on holding on to that trade? If you're doing a quick scalp trade, then any expiration date from 0 to 9 days out is a good place to start. If you're planning on doing a day trade or a swing trade, I'd say an expiration date around 7 days to 30 days is a good time frame. If you're planning on holding longer than a couple weeks, I'd go even further out, at least a month, maybe around 45 days. Remember the saying, when in doubt, go further out. Having extra time is not a bad idea with options. All these numbers that I just gave you are just suggestions to give you an idea. You'll have to do your own testing. Next, you need to choose a strike price. So the question to be asked, do you want it to be in the money or out of the money? Again, this depends on your plan. The biggest thing to note is the further out of the money, the cheaper it will be, but the higher percentage time decay the options contract will have, but a better risk reward it will also probably have. Now, if you have closer dated contracts as well, that will also increase the time decay percentage, but might also raise your risk reward ratio. The advantage to this is it will bring more volatility. Some traders like to scalp out of the money calls that are same day expiration, because they move very quickly and are very volatile. They're also typically pretty cheap. That is why it is vital to know how long you plan on holding the option and where you think the stock is going. If you don't have a very good idea of the time frame, then possibly do an in-the-money contract to give you some intrinsic value and further out to give you more time. This will make the contract less volatile and may be easier to hold on to. A lot of traders like to do close to at the money calls as well, because then you have that 50-50 chance of that contract ending in the money. Of course, it all depends on your plan and where you think the stock will go. And the third point is evaluate the options. Take a look at least the open interest, the implied volatility, and the spread between the bid and the ask. Open interest is how many contracts are currently active. If there is an open interest of 10, then that is not very many people interested in that contract or that have a position with that contract. Without open interest, it's like trying to trade a stock with very little volume. You want at least around, say, 1,000 in open interest to give you a decent volume in the options contract. The fourth step I've already mentioned, but I want to go over it more, and that is spreads. In general, I personally like under a 5% spread. For example, if it's a $1 option, I would want the spread to be under 5 cents. Or if it's a $2 option, I'd want the spread to be under around 10 cents. The size of the spread being too large or not is up to you and your risk tolerance and plan. The fifth step is looking at the IV. Is it low or high? As I said before, it's hard to say what a high IV is, but there is another way to measure IV than just the IV percentage that can be pretty helpful. That is using the IV rank. This is an indicator that Tastyworks provides. I also have it as a bubble on my Thinkorswim account. Below you'll find a link for that. It gives you a number between 0 and 100. 0 being the least volatile or lowest IV within the last year, and 100 being the most volatile with the highest IV that it has been at within the last year. Anything over 50 is a high IV rank. The hard part is, does the high or low IV really matter? Well, it depends on your plan. Do you expect the stock to get more volatile or less volatile? For example, if a stock is going into earnings, it's possible the IV will be rising up until earnings, then fall after earnings. A lot of traders like to ride the IV from low to high into that earnings date and close the options before earnings. In general, if you are buying an option, it is more beneficial to have a low IV, so you don't have to pay as much for the contract. It may take you a few times to go through this process. After you trade options for a bit, it should become a habit to compare all the different aspects of each options contract to find what fits your trade the best. At the same time, don't overthink things. In summary, there are 5 things that you should look at when choosing to buy an option. 1. Choose the expiration dates based off your plan. 2. Choose your strike price based off how volatile or cheap you want. 3. Choose a contract with lots of open interests and volume. 4. Be sure there isn't a crazy spread. 5. Watch out for the IV and make sure you aren't going to get in too much trouble with theta or time decay. These are some of the most important things to think about when choosing which option you should get. But of course, it all comes down to you and your plan and what you think the stock will do. So don't think about it too hard. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next video.